welcome. This is the ninth stress management workshop for Leeds Beckett University. Again, apologise for jumping on a couple of minutes late. I thought I was live and then I realised I wasn't. So I'm just trying to get used to the new interface that I'm seeing right now on the live Facebook version. But anyway, hello to you and welcome. My name's Jen, and again, as mentioned, this is the ninth stress management workshop for Leeds Beckett University. So I'm just going to go through a few points relating to the weeks we've previously had. I'll signpost you if you wish to jump on board and check out the previous workshops. So week number one was all about working out your stress levels. As we all know, we are still in lockdown. It is quite a, it's a semi version of lockdown. It's been relaxed slightly, but essentially we are all still in lockdown. And if you are experiencing high levels of stress, you're not too sure exactly if you are experiencing stress, because this situation has presented stress and anxiety for people really for the first time in their lives, then I do find it really important for you to really work out and check in with yourself and see where you are with your stress levels. So if you were to ping down to the bottom of the description, you can see week number one, the link to the Are You Stressed assessment. And if you were to score anything over 14 points plus, there's more information in that workshop, but you could actually help yourself in order to bring the stress levels down that you might be experiencing right now during this crisis. Don't be too alarmed if you are scoring a high stress level. We've all been there maybe in other times in our lives, but I'm telling you right here, right now, that there's always help available. Definitely support from me if you need it, and there are ways in order to bring your stress levels down so you don't run into future problems with your mental and physical health. So that's week number one. Week number two was analysing your here and now. Again, a very practical element to that workshop. Again, the link is below. I was taking you through a very practical self-help type tool where we analyse where you were before the crisis, where you feel you might be right now currently, and also how you might feel or how you want to maybe change and live your life in the future. So that gave you a 3 sort of stage type overview of your life. So a very practical tool as mentioned. The link is below. Week number 3 was your 4 mental states, as I do think it's quite good if you were to maybe just briefly or summarise at any one time what mental state you might be experiencing. We were talking about the 4, so I've been in pretty much all of the 4 mental states. Stress and anxiety is definitely the one where I've operated from a few times, especially when running businesses, but we all really ideally want to be heading towards achieving flow state, and there was lots of practical tips in that workshop in order to change your state if you do feel you've been in a bit of a negative mental state for longer than what you feel is ideal for you in your situation. Week number 4 is practicing gratitude, a very, very useful thing to do, and I actually implement it into my day. I do it with my little boy at the end of each day. He's 4, and we sit down after reading our bedtime story together and the things that we're grateful for, and that's really good in order to bring your stress levels down. There's so much science behind it. I really did thoroughly enjoy doing the research behind that workshop, so go check that out. That's practicing gratitude, week number 4. Week number 5, we spoke about 25 self-care tips. I'm actually going to be talking about self-care briefly in this workshop today, but there are 25 go-to tips. Wasn't encouraging you to implement all of them into your life. However, they are very good if you're, again, struggling with stress and you wanted maybe a quicker type alleviation if you are experiencing stress, if you can't maybe do any exercise or you can't meditate, or you're not keen on meditation. There's other ways in order for you to look after yourself through those 25 self-care tips. Week number 6 is all about personal development, and really, in a nutshell, the previous weeks was really self-development. It was a concept I fell into in my 20s. I wasn't really encouraged to personally develop myself at school. I'm sure maybe things are changing at school, colleges, universities now, but I sort of stumbled across it when I started to venture into the business world, and I cannot praise it enough. I think everyone would really enjoy and benefit personal development, and in that workshop I gave you a bit of an overview as to what personal development is and how it can really improve and enhance your life. Week number 7 was 13 fast and effective self-development exercises, and again more of an advanced version of the 25 self-care tips. But again, if you're looking for practical tools and techniques that you can actually implement into your life, that was a very useful workshop again. And last week, week number 8, was a difference between stress and anxiety. They actually can feel quite similar. You can actually experience them, you know, in similar ways. However, there is a difference. So stress is something that we all respond to, and it's a very natural thing to experience. However, anxiety tends to follow once the trigger, the stress trigger, has gone and you're still feeling the effects of stress in your body. So I'll just briefly touch over my own personal story, and it gives you more of an idea as to the struggles, the stress that I've had. And I obviously want you to gain value from my story and my background, so then you can maybe see the signs and become aware of your situation if you are experiencing stress, because it's when you leave stress unchecked that's when you can actually run into mental and physical challenges. So, and that's what these workshops are all about. So really about self-help type practical exercises for you to draw whatever you want from them. If you are struggling anyway, then please let me know at any time. You can find me on Facebook, and I want this to be a place of support. And if you want to share anything, whether online or discreetly via Messenger, then you can do that. So, but yeah, this is again part of Leeds Beckett University. They do fantastic classes. I'm sure if you're watching me, you've been also watching the other fantastic classes. Great for alleviating stress, just to keep your energy levels up as well, especially if you are affected in the crisis and you're not really working, you're not really holding down your regular routine. So fantastic, so much variety, and we've all enjoyed supporting you and offering our services to you here via this Leeds Beckett University page. So today, week number 9, we're doing this for 9 weeks now. It's just absolutely crazy that we're still in this situation, but this situation does present many changes and obstacles and challenges for a lot of people, whether good or bad. But obviously when we first realised that we were going to go into lockdown, it was a huge change in so many ways for so many different people and on so many different levels. And it's definitely not one situation affected all in the same way at all. I'm sure we can all rely on personal stories of how it's been really challenging and heartbreaking, and I'm sure we've also got stories that we can share that other people have, or maybe yourself, have thrived through the COVID-19 crisis. So, you know, it's been a big thing, and we're all in this together in a way of, yes, it's happened to obviously everyone on a global scale. However, we're all different beings, we're all perceiving life in a completely different way. No two people in the same room perceive where they are in reality in the same way, and it just depends really what you are as a person, how you are as a person, the characteristics you portray and the traits that you have. And people handle stress in different ways, and these workshops, they are very generic and broad to help, you know, most people, but again, you just draw what you want from them in order for you to you know, see the benefits of them taking action, because again, if you leave stress unchecked, that's when you could lead into problems. So this workshop is really for anyone who's still feeling the worry and the stress of this situation. If you still feel in a bit of a panic about things, if you are still struggling, you know, being sort of thrown into this situation, and you've got kids to manage, and you've got elderly people that you're worried about, and you've got, you know, challenges even buying and shopping each week, and you're trying to work from home, whatever it is, this is for anyone who's really still struggling, and maybe the stress at the beginning is now sort of turning into experiencing anxiety on a daily basis. So it could be for anyone who maybe fit under that umbrella. I don't want you to worry, and it is a confusing time, but again, with workshops like this, that there is a way. It's just all about finding a way for you to manage your stress levels. I want you really, whether it's this workshop or the previous 7 other workshops, I want you to feel you can move forward. I want you to feel you've got something to grab onto, you've got hope for the future. There will be light at the end of the tunnel. We will get back to whatever it is normal is. It might be a slightly different version of what normal is or was for us, but we will get through this together. And yes, it's probably a very good thing as well, in a way of seeing how you had your life before. I mean, this is actually a great opportunity for change. I know it's hard to manage change at the best of times. Us humans aren't really good at change. We tend to avoid it at whatever cost sometimes. But it could be a time for change, for growth, and that your future could be even better than what it was before the crisis. So again, with these workshops, it might help you, move from you feeling stuck, if that's where you feel you are right now. If you've got any questions along the way, then please let me know. I am on this interface and I'm not too used to it and I can't see any questions. I have no idea who's jumped on. So if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them along the way and I will respond to them at the end, or I can get back to you on a personal message. So again, as mentioned, my name's Jen. I do spin at Leeds Beckett University every Monday and Thursday, 5:15 till 6. Totally miss my spin. However, with all the awesome classes that Leeds Beckett University caters for online, there's something for everyone, even now, even though we can't physically go to the gym. So that's all good. And the reason why I feel like I may be semi-qualified to talk about stress is because I've really struggled with stress. And I think just to talk about my story for the next couple of minutes will make you realise possibly that you don't want to go as far as what I did. Obviously, I was worst case scenario. So long story short, I have run 4 indoor cycling studios in my time. And the 2 in China were brilliant. In fact, they were just around the corner from Wuhan where the virus broke out. And again, great on paper, it was fantastic. However, behind the scenes, I was really struggling with stress and anxiety. And inevitably, it led to my burnout because my lifestyle was about me working. I really didn't know how to look after myself. Even I was in the health and fitness industry, I knew how to eat well. I was certainly spinning, but I was doing things on the very extreme level. And I think for about a period of 4 years, my lifestyle was working until I burnt myself out, and I would crash and I would find myself in bed for a few days. Like the exhaustion would just like really beat me and put me down in bed. And then I would just wake up from that, rest as it were, and then I would just go straight back into that lifestyle again. And there's the pattern. And then over time, I ended up getting depressed because my lifestyle just wasn't serving me well on a healthy level. It really affected my mental and physical state because there's only so much or so long you can maintain that pace. So in my eyes, I was sort of chasing money, chasing success, and I got it. I certainly received it in my business, but then you sort of realise, well, what are you actually chasing? Because you can't enjoy the successes if you are just always flat out exhausted. So that was my wake up call, to have the balance of being successful but not working yourself to the ground, because I certainly do have the traits of being a high achiever. Most entrepreneurs do. Where are you? Do you own a business? Are you like a high achiever? Do you just love learning? Are you really enjoying your studies, your exams? And you can get to the point where there's the line and you cross it. And that's definitely been me in my time. And that's when you need to learn to be aware of where that line is. And then you can say, well, let's hold back. Let's step back and let's just start implementing healthier things to do in my life to avoid going over the line and then burning out. And then obviously my extreme case leads into my struggles with anxiety and depression. So just an overview on stress. Again, as mentioned previously, we all respond to triggers in our life. Stress is a very natural thing for us to experience. Back in the day, stress was there and felt in our bodies in order to run away from danger. However, we're not surrounded by tigers, well, I hope not, on a daily basis. We might need that stress trigger when we are running out the way of a car, for example, but it's when you start to get addicted to the stress because the chemicals that are released in the brain can get addictive, and that's what most people don't tend to realise, that it's those chemicals that keep you wired, and yeah, you can, and in my experience, become addicted. So the amygdala is the fear response mechanism in the brain, and that when that kicks in, it releases those chemical and electrical signals, which actually shuts down the motor cortex, which is your ability to take action. So that freeze, fight, or fly away type response is the natural part, but it's when you get addicted to those chemicals, that's when you need to start implementing the tools into your life in order to avoid getting addicted. And we've all been there, so if you can just imagine back to the beginning of the crisis, we were probably forever just watching the news, reading the papers, hanging on to all the stories we're hearing, and it probably just consumed a lot of your energy and a lot of your time. And that's an example really of you becoming addicted to the chemicals that are released, the stress, the fear. So yeah, not good. But we obviously are a good couple of months on from that. But if you were still experiencing stress, let's say you joined me on the first workshop and you had high stress levels, if you were to maybe ping back to week number 1 and complete the Are You Stressed questionnaire again, the assessment, where are you now? Can you now see the difference? And if you are scoring high still, this is when I would really strongly suggest that you start implementing the tools and techniques in these workshops in your life. So the psychology of dealing with change. I'm actually going to read this out. It's taken from Psych.com, and I just really felt the need to talk about it here. We experience transitions in work and relationships, changes in our physical and mental health, and new events in our local communities and our world. Sometimes we know a change will occur, while other times it can suddenly and unexpectedly occur. So obviously the COVID-19 crisis. Maybe it's a disappointment, or maybe it's a wonderful surprise. Many people spend a great deal of time and energy trying to avoid change. Hands up, I'm sure we've all done that from time to time, but it will inevitably catch up with them. If you can learn to cope with change, you'll lower your risk of stress, anxiety, and depression. Your relationships will flourish and your body will feel healthier. And if you can't cope with change, only a minor amount of stress can make you feel overwhelmed by life. You might also struggle to set and meet the goals you have for yourself. Being able to cope with change is sometimes called resilience, though your environment and genes might influence your level of resilience. The amount isn't set in stone. Practicing different ways of thinking and being in the world can boost your ability to deal with change and help you create a life that is adaptive to new places and unexpected events. So yeah, in a nutshell, we're humans. We tend to move away from change. We certainly resist it, but it's inevitable. It's life. There are changes that happen. COVID-19 crisis, fair enough, huge change on a global scale. And it's hard to say just build resilience because it's such an uncertain experience to go through. And yeah, it's something that we all must just try and learn. And again, these are like life skills that I wish were around when I was at school, and learning how to deal with situations. And it's the skills I've had to learn in adult life through, in my experience, running a business that I'm going to pass on to my little boy. Because I think resilience is just up there with a very awesome lifelong skill to master. And it's not something that you can just practice within a few days, you've got it. I mean, imagine how many situations have you been in where you just really want it to change? I mean, this is a prime example, but I won't go into the depth of the COVID-19 crisis. But think on a very small scale. How many times have you tried to change a financial situation or a relationship you've been in, or something that hasn't gone your way? It's like the more you try to change something, the more it doesn't change. And it's that mirror effect, isn't it? Where if you actually dwell on something, you actually attract more of that into your life. And yeah, hands up, first up experience, I can certainly relate to that. So if I put my experience of business, and you might put that into your experience, your side, with like exams or a family situation or a job or someone that you may not like at work, but you can't change them, you can't change your job, you can't change the situation. You might be able to influence it some way, but to accept what is going on will help you in so many ways, but it is hard to do. There are 5 healthy practices, I think, that you can do to increase your level of resilience. And actually, it pings back to other parts of our workshops that we've had. But I've nailed it down to 5. You can write these down. Obviously, the recorded version will go out. But I think, it's got an itchy nose, sorry. The 5 ways to practice and strengthen your resilience to any situation. Is to evaluate your level of control. Really, how much control do you have over a situation you want to change? I mean, with the COVID-19 crisis, we have what feels like no control. And that's quite hard to, as an example, take on board, understand and accept. However, sometimes change at that time seems bad, negative, and not really what you want. But it's not until you move forward and connect the dots going backwards that maybe it wasn't a bad thing in the end anyway. But if you feel you've got no control over the situation, then that's when you can practice to let go. So yeah, just judge on the levels of control that you have on any one situation. It is easy to get consumed with all the what ifs and if I can do this and what happens if I do this, that can that happen. But it's just probably best if you feel you've got no control of the situation, just let it go and accept what is happening is happening. And if you feel you can take control on maybe a smaller piece of the bigger situation, focus on that, because that's where you can draw power. You can be empowered by you feeling you've got some control over the situation. So you may not obviously have control over the COVID-19 crisis. Who has? I mean, for example, today, so I'm a parent, I've got a 4-year-old, I only received the email today, do I send my child back to school? And I've got to make a decision by tomorrow. So yes, the government hasn't given me or parents, they're not forcing us to send our kids back to school, but I can't control the whole virus, obviously, but that is a small part I can control. So yeah, it is giving control to the parents, and I just have to make this decision. Will I, won't I? Again, that's a whole new subject. But yeah, that's just an example. Number 2, as a very good practice for increasing resiliency, is self-care. And if you go back to week number 5, I think it was, there was 25 self-care tips that you could look into and maybe adopt and implement into your life. But in order to accept change or deal with change, again, building that resiliency into your life, is just acknowledge the loss or accept the situation. So it might be that you've lost someone, or it might be that you've had a relationship end, or it might be that you've had some argument with a family member. It's all about just acknowledging that situation. Can you evaluate your level of control over it? Whatever the answers are for that, but always look after yourself, because if you start dwelling on something that you've got no control over, that's again when the stress can creep in, and you end up having, physical and mental symptoms from that if it is over, periods of time. So definitely always at the forefront, practice self-care. Number 3 is check in with your thought patterns. So again, a very good and strong exercise for you to practice, because when you think about it, if you're meditating every day, great, but most of us are not meditating. And the reason why meditation is so important is it's a practice of just slowing the thoughts down. If you were to sit and watch your thoughts like you would do sit and watch TV, you'll know what really is going on up here to then know how you feel. If you're feeling groggy and down and at a loss and doubtful and you're worrying, and you don't know why, or you feel like you maybe not are stressed, well, the best thing to do is just to sit down with yourself and just, if you can catch my drift, but watch what thoughts are popping up, and don't give them any power or any meaning or any momentum. Just see what's coming up, And I find it also, if you're in a, well, I have been in the past, and I don't know where you are, but if you were experiencing negative spirals, downward spirals of thinking, write them down. You know, what exactly that's maybe making you stressed and anxious, because you may not think that you are, but if you actually sit and watch your thoughts and write them down, that the big thoughts that keep coming up, then you can work on them. So definitely good to check your thought patterns. Do you feel they are positive? Do you feel they are negative? And are you self talking, like, you know, in a negative way? Number 4, be in the present. And again, it's quite linked to mindfulness and being calm and in the moment, because stress and anxiety tends to happen because you're worrying about the future. Like, you are here, but you're worried about your future self. So you're worried about your job, you're worried about your kids going to school, you're worried about your exams. All of this is thoughts and worry for the future that you might have, because it hasn't happened yet, but you're stressing about it. So again, to alleviate the stress and to deal with that change that might happen, is to come back to yourself and be present. And again, meditation is a way of being present and calming those thoughts. And number 5 is to find your priorities. So if you were to, again, assess how much control you've got over a situation, if you feel like, oh, you know what, it's completely out of my hands, I can't do anything about this situation, you know, just take a step back from it, look after yourself, check in with your thoughts, make sure you're doing your self-care exercises and tips, whatever it is that you want to do, and just really hone in on what you can have control over and what your priorities are. Because when you start spreading yourself thinly, that's again when stress can really take over. But it's all about narrowing it all down to what you can you know, control, what you have confidence that you can, you know, deal with, and prioritizing. So I always suggest, it's not a selfish thing either when I say this, but always look after number 1. It's a bit like that analogy: you're on the plane and the captain comes up and says you need to put your gas mask on for whatever reason. I don't want to say you want to crash, but you know, they always suggest you put your mask on first, then help you know, your children, your child. And this is what it's like in times of stress. It's like you need to be the best version of yourself first, so you can then be the best version to the situation or to anyone else around you, your friends and your family. So it goes back to those self-care tips. And I'll read you out just one last thing to wrap up this workshop, because I thought this was really nice as well. Above all, prioritising your health in life's transitions means not being afraid to ask for help when you need it. Humans are social creatures by nature, so you weren't built to withstand every sudden event in life without the support of others. Talk to family and friends who are experiencing similar changes or considering finding a support group in your community. Ask your doctor about how to prioritise your health during change, and don't be afraid to talk to a counsellor or mental health professionals about building your resilience. You can't avoid change, but you live a life of resilience. You can embrace transition and see challenges as opportunities to thrive. So we're all different. Again, some people might turn up to these workshops and think, oh, you know, that's quite self-explanatory, I do that anyway. Fantastic. Some people might just need a reminder. But when you are stressed, you cannot see the wood through the trees, and you end up just going quite insular, and you feel you've got the whole weight on the whole world on your shoulders, the weight of it. And it's easy to block everyone out when you're in that zone, in that sort of negative mental state. And all I'm saying here at the end is just to highlight, you're not on your own. Whatever you're experiencing, reach out. This is a community Facebook page held by Leeds Beckett University. We're all here, you know, to support you in whichever way we can. The doctors are there to help you should you need that sort of help. And again, people, you can see it all around us, right? People are just connecting again. I know it's not on a physical level right now, but I've been speaking to my family probably a lot more than usual because I'm not as busy. So it's nice. And this is when people do come together in times of change, because yeah, as humans, we're supposed to build this resiliency, but at the end of the day, to continue with change, it can be quite unhealthy, and you shouldn't have to be on your own dealing with it. So wherever you are, there is always help. Okay, so that was today's workshop. I hope you found value of it. Please let me know any comments. Give it a like if you like it. Ping back to the previous workshops. Today wasn't really as much of a practical workshop than the previous weeks, but again, we do go into depth with the other weeks. So again, it just depends where you are, how you feel, and where your stress levels are. So I always suggest that you ping back to the first week in order to see where you are with your stress levels, and then we can go from there. All right then guys, thanks ever so much again, and I will see you next week.